What is up, people? Welcome to the Ther-I-P show where we put our favorite characters and IP on the sofa to figure out the best way forward for them. The hopes that everyone will love these characters as much as we do. This is episode 6, but before I introduce all my guests and the IP we're going to chat about, please take a quick second to smash that like button and go ahead and subscribe to the Grown A Geeks channel. All right, now that that is done, let's talk like real people. Welcome to the Ther-I-P show. I have reassembled most of my illustrious previous guests who spoke with me about what we're going to talk about today, but just in pieces and chunks. So I'm gonna go around first. Christina Spann, childhood friend. Hello, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Yeah, I guess major DC fan is my preference. But yeah, I would say favorite character. Well, I was on the Flash episode, but I still am kind of a Batman fan. So it's really my thing. That and Nightwing.
That
All right.
hoodie on Nightwing's popping.
Yeah, it's a really good run, actually. The latest series is a really good run. You haven't read it, you should.
Y'all some freaks. Just like Starfire. Let's move on to Ty. Ty, what's up? How's it going? Ty, you were on the Wonder Woman episode with us.
That's right. And I had so much fun. I'm good. By the time this airs, season 2 of Whiskey-Lodeon is going to drop, and I'm pretty excited for y'all to hear it.
Yes, cool. Definitely check that out. Ty hosts a great podcast where he drinks whiskey recipes and talks about Nickelodeon shows, and it's exactly what nerds in our age demographic are looking for right now. So go and check that out. We're going to move over to our fearless leader, Sam. Sam, how are you?
I am doing well. I am looking forward to this conversation to discuss these DC things. While I'm not a Batman hater, I am in fact a Superman fan. So,
as you can making that anybody who doubts that, you can go and watch the Superman episode of Ther-I-P featuring Sam. I think that was episode 1. You know, I'm a Marvel person, so I think that a lot of the DC things that I like characters I like are like more fringe. I think Flash is probably my favorite of the big guns, but I think like Green Arrow would probably be like comic book Green Arrow, where he's like a communist and drags Green Lantern across the country so he can like remember that we have racism here and sexism and all these other problems on Earth. I like that character a lot more than, rich people who just go down into the hood and beat up drug dealers for fun,
right?
For practice.
Let's relax. The characters.
We're aliens who cosplay nerds to blend in.
Wow.
Fair enough.
I'm coming for everybody. That's going to be the energy this episode. We're talking about the DC universe, more specifically, probably the DCEU, but I think that can be all encompassing. Sam and I have kind of had
a lot of the same problems.
Oh yeah.
They do honestly share a lot of the same problems. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think like talking about it just in terms of the DCEU would also be helpful. We are going to like include thoughts from comics and thoughts from the TV shows, but I think the failure of the current DCEU is probably like the biggest thing that's on the table because, compared to Marvel, the Marvel MCU has only added esteem to a lot of their characters, while the DCEU is kind of still being propped up by the comics and not like adding to the already established legacy. So for me, I think that would be the smartest place to just like start. And I'm just going to pose this question to the group. Whoever wants to dive in first, go for it, i.e. not Sam, because I know you're going to have a real long answer for this.
I got thoughts
Can the
and opinions, things to say.
Can the current DCEU be salvaged at all?
That's a tough one, man. Because
we can talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of it.
Because I want the DCEU to do well. Like, one, give Marvel some competition. Let them be like, all right, cool. We now got to tell like really good stories because we got competition. But what it comes down to it for me is that unless they can get the people in charge of the DC animated movies to write the scripts, I don't see how they can save it. Like, it's just, there's no cohesion. I mean, besides Batman versus Superman and the Justice League, like, they don't correlate with each other at all.
So I feel you on that, but I guess my concern is they didn't get the people writing the animation to do the movies, but they did pull different people from it. And then even having Jeff Johns be over it, to see when he was over that division for a minute, it still wasn't what it needed to be, which is interesting because Jeff Johns, like, whatever, but so I don't know that that's really the solution, because I feel like they kind of tried that and it wasn't.
Did they give Jeff Johns the creative control like they give Kevin Feige?
Now that is a question. I would say that's a question I can't answer. I just know that he supposedly had final approval for a lot of things. So I'll be honest, that I don't know. It could be about the amount of control that they're giving him.
So specifically, and I'll just kind of pick in key points so that I don't ramble too much. Having Jeff Johns try to take on the role of something like a Kevin Feige it's going to be a bit more difficult for a Jeff Johns, because Marvel had the luxury of being able to pull characters who, although they were known, don't have the same level of popularity at the time that the established characters of the DCEU had. When you make a movie and you say Iron Man, there are plenty of people who are Iron Man fans now. Iron Man has been a B-list person for the longest time. He was not an A-lister. Absolutely. He was not your Spider-Man. He was not your Wolverine. He wasn't any of the X-Men, who technically, because they had such a cinematic presence, had already like established themselves. And with the existing cartoons and things like that, the Avengers as a whole were B-list characters. So Kevin Feige had probably got more free reign to do what he wanted to do and establish those characters and present them how he chose to present them, because there was nothing solid to compare to except the comics. And when you were trying to make something cinematic to establish, as Jeff and I talked about before, when you try to create something that's going to be the new standard, you need that free reign to go and explore and show things and create a canon. Because Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, hell, even Aquaman, these were people that everyone knew. These were not B-list characters. These have always been top-tier A-list characters. Even if they weren't as prominent, they were still considered A-list characters. You don't get the same kind of free reign that you would get with a Thor, with a Iron Man, with a Hawkeye, with a Black Widow. You can do whatever you want with those characters. Whatever you tell me those characters are, that's what it is. Because nobody knows those stories. But every Batman movie has to follow the exact same origin story, period. It has to follow the exact same steps, period. And that's why we end up with nothing but Batman. Because even if you take Spider-Man as an example, they don't really get experimental with Spider-Man. Now, granted, you're talking Sony versus Marvel, but even when Marvel finally got their hands on Spider-Man, the only thing they did not do was show us Uncle Ben on screen. Otherwise, everything about the character that's known, established, and canon stayed the same. So you don't get to experiment the same way. And I think that's where Jeff Johns kind of found his hands tied. And that came from probably the higher up executives. And that's the biggest flaw.
I want to piggyback on that Spider-Man point too, because Marvel actually did something. They almost did it backwards, where they like established the world using all their like quote unquote at the time B-list characters, which, you know, if you know the business of it, Marvel didn't have the rights to make movies with their A-list guys because they sold off the rights to keep them going bankrupt. But the smart move that they made was putting Kevin Feige in the position that he was in, but also just like getting out of the way. And I think like then you have the luxury of being able to, you're not bringing Spider-Man into a world where you are having to build the world on his back. We get to like get to know. I feel like Tom Holland's Spider-Man, I really got to know like Peter Parker a lot more than in the other movies, because in those other movies they're not only establishing the character, they're establishing the whole world. Like, what does this Spider-Man universe look like in Mary Jane and Flash? But then you got all this other stuff. And is this a world where it's just Spider-Man by himself, or is he interacting with other heroes? It's like we clearly have like a world that has been built and established. And it's kind of like what we talked about with the Fantastic Four, with why we didn't think that Homeboy from The Office like worked, because even if we haven't seen the character yet, even if we haven't seen an actor in that role, because that world already is so fleshed out, whoever they cast has to like fit. There's a silhouette of the character in the world already. And so with DC having to kind of come out with the big guns and build the world, like you're having to like make these movies where it's like the tone has to feel like Superman and Batman exist in the same reality, when I honestly don't really feel like that has to be the case. But that's why, you know, I feel like when you put somebody like Snyder in charge, where he's going to be more focused on the visuals and he's going to lock into darker visuals and darker tones, as opposed to a Kevin Feige who's like, my universe is going to be a genre universe. Like Ant-Man movies are going to be heist movies. Like Guardians of the Galaxy is going to be space opera. Like Captain America is going to be our born identity. Like Iron Man is going to be whatever the hell it will. Like I don't know the genre, but you know,
action comedy.
They put genres on all of them. Actually, Iron Man movies were kind of like John Hughes movies in the 80s, and I mean they definitely doubled down on that with the Spider-Man movies. Yeah, I mean all we needed was Peter Parker sliding through the hallways at Saturday Detention. So I feel like the biggest thing is like they put someone at the helm, because when they did allow those movies like Shazam to just have its own tone and not be burdened by having to feel dark and brooding, like it's a movie by some kids from an orphanage. Like it can't be cloudy every day. Life is already sad enough. You know what I mean? But then
that's actually what I was gonna say.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll let you.
No, I was saying that's that's actually what I was gonna say. Like when we talk about whether it can be salvaged, like Shazam is proof that they can do it, right? Because to me, Shazam was great. That's literally, at this point, is one of my favorite DC movies. The way they did it was so different, but they still acknowledged all the other characters. So I don't know if the solution is, I mean, the great thing about comic books is that we can have things happening on multiple Earths. So we can do a lot of things. So in terms of salvaging it, we got to get rid of Ezra anyway, right? So we could really just take it to a whole nother. I mean, we could really just take it to a whole nother Earth, get a whole nother Flashpoint type situation going, and redo everything. They have that option, and they can still keep some of the characters that we do like. So we could still have Shazam. We could, still have him playing Shazam. They could even keep Wonder Woman if they really wanted to. They don't have to change everyone, because when you're talking about any of those timeline things with Flash's character, you are able to do a reset in whatever way you want to, because you're playing with the timeline.
So we talking soft reset right now.
Well, before we even get to soft reset, because
that's going to be the only way it's going to work. Because think about it, besides Shazam and the first Wonder Woman movie, what has DC done that's been big? You have the new Batman movie. You have the Joker movie. These movies that don't take place in the universe, they're outside of it. And I will give DC credit.
Aquaman
They are
didn't
doing
flop.
pretty well on the multiverse.
Aquaman did do well, but was it great? Like,
It was fake
It's
Black
not like
Panther
it didn't
underwater.
bomb. No, it was fun.
it's cool.
When we compare the good movies to the bad movies, Aquaman still falls in the category of at least being a solid story and not a bad movie.
This is
And
true.
as a
I will
result,
agree with that.
Aquaman is still a safe character. In terms of our
The
soft
movie
reset,
was
Aquaman,
not bad.
And at this point, unfortunately for the DCEU, that's a fucking gold star to say that it's not bad, because people have no problem telling you if the movie is bad.
I'm recasting Aquaman. I'm gonna be like, Jason Momoa, if you want to come back and play Lobo, I got you.
He would be a great Lobo.
He's
basically being Lobo now.
Yeah, definitely a better Lobo than Aquaman when you present that. But it's
Aquaman's
also a part
Lobo
of the re-imaging of Lobo. And that's kind of where, when I was talking about having the free reign, DC as a whole has been working to change the image of a character like Aquaman and get him away from, like, everybody has ripped on Aquaman for the longest time with the talking to fish,
right?
And it's not talking to fish, it's commanding sea life, and it gets into the real nuances. But
it's Super Friend's fault,
right? And it's not one of those characters, because they've literally always presented it like if he was not in the ocean, he was useless. That's how they made
not
it look
facts at all,
for the longest time. But you go back and you watch. You go back and you watch something animated like Justice League War or Justice, you know what I'm saying? Like, and you get to see Aquaman is and has been that dude. And they kind of revisited him in the comics. Early 2000s, they took away the clean cut Boy Scout kind of look. They gave him the long beard. They put the long hair. He had a hook for a hand, and like that Aquaman has been badass since jump.
They should have introduced him in the DCEU the same way they introduced him in the Justice League cartoon. He should have been the first villain of the first. He should have been the villain of the first Justice League movie.
Yeah, they did.
He finds out all the shit about his brother and all that stuff like that. Like, that's the kind of stuff to me where I look and I say, y'all literally had the blueprint like right there. Why are we doing this weird like lighthouse rom-com love story between the parents? Like, I don't care about that. Like,
I truly don't understand why we don't just take most of the animated movies and just do a live action, like slightly different version. Like,
and you know, the reason I can't even explain why they don't, because I agree with you 100%. That would be almost foolproof and almost error-proof. The biggest problem that I think the DCEU suffers from is world building and character origins. Having to take already established characters and try to recreate them so that we can see it from the standpoint they're trying to present, as opposed to letting them be established characters. Because people already know the basis of the characters. We've had enough Batman movies where we did not need to see in any of the DCEU anything about Batman other than Batman on screen. And you could have absolutely come in, not shown the pearls, not shown Crime Alley. That did not need to be seen at all. If you take a note from Spider-Man, he starts off, he's already kind of been doing this friendly neighborhood Spider-Man bit with his homemade costume. He's already established the moment we jump in. Now, the origin story, we know it. We've seen all these other movies where it's been explained to death. We've seen every Superman movie. We've seen every Batman movie. So when you do the movie Man of Steel, because you were trying to, Man of Steel by itself was the soft reboot. And if you let Man of Steel be the soft reboot and you're trying to establish your character and your tone and the, you know, how things go, when you get around to Batman v Superman, you should already have your established Batman. The fact that they even have to tiptoe to explain, you're backtracking on your own work. And as a result, you have this world that's not cohesive because we're trying to cram all this unnecessary. They could have spent a little bit more time fleshing out the character of Lex Luthor.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they wanted, because there's a lot of people that have a problem with Jesse Eisenberg. I was about to say, there's a lot of people who have a problem with Jesse Eisenberg. But if they had taken more time and focused on that character of Lex Luthor to actually make him menacing and not just weird, then that would have established something as a villain. Because first of all, a lot of times Lex Luthor is not given the proper credit of a villain that he truly is.
Oh, right. He's honestly top tier villain. Like there's
and it's like
DC rushed it.
I am not getting.
They did Thanos within the first 3 years instead of taking the time to actually build and actually make it something. You came in 4 movies in. It's like, hey, we're now going to reference our big bad for the whole thing.
But Man of Steel shouldn't have been a soft reboot anyway. They shouldn't have led with Superman. I don't think that's where they should start.
Not if you
wouldn't have minded with Superman if they would have set the tone of Superman, because it feels like they didn't even set the tone with Superman. They just put Superman in a dark story and like, well, we're going to tell this dark story around this.
And this is why. So Man of Steel, I do think it's a good movie. My brother is a Superman fan and he loves Man of Steel. And I will slightly defer to his opinion. But I mean, but
I'm sorry, what? He broke up a little bit. Repeat that statement.
I was just playing.
But
I just want to make sure the camera caught what you said. But go ahead.
But what I will say is, for me, as a person who's not the biggest Superman fan, but I still do, dabble in some Superman. That started off as a really dark Superman, and to me, that was not the way to set up the DC universe. Like that's not how we want to start it off, because it was giving me more Batman vibes. And not saying that there aren't aspects of Superman that go into that, right? Because especially the Superman and Lois comic, that one's darker because it's an older Superman. It's different. That one, even the coloring in the comic is different. And I think we kind of talked about that on the episode I was on. But usually when people think of Superman, they think of a very, like even when you look at the animated series, the coloring is so different from Batman animated series.
So bright. It's bright.
Right?
It's
right.
And so
all
to me,
in the daytime.
So for me, I would have rather started with the brighter Superman, right? And then we can get dark with him later. That's fine. But to start it off that way, I think I agree with the point that DC felt like they had to do everything in this really dark tone. And that's just not, even though DC can be grittier, it's not necessary, because Flash is not a darker tone. Superman, a lot of it's not. Like you have to be able to have that versatility. And I think that they got stuck in that one style for all of their movies set off of that. And then from then on, that's what we got. And so Shazam and Aquaman broke us out of that a little bit. Because I still would argue that Wonder Woman, that first one, Wonder Woman 84 is terrible. But the first Wonder Woman.
The first one.
Yes, the first one still was a little closer to that darker tone though. But I would say that Aquaman and Shazam, kind of took us out of that. And I think we need more of that. Like, to me, Shazam was like almost our Guardians of the Galaxy, right? It was something people were like, who is this person? Like, we don't even know what's happening here. And it was fun and it was different. And if they would take more risks and do things like that, it would definitely be more successful as a universe.
I don't mind a dark take, but let it be dark for a purpose. Like if you're going to tell a dark Superman story, you have to build a brighter story for you to actually realize, oh, it's getting dark. You're starting to actually feel something for Superman. But instead, like, this is a dark universe. So then you're like, okay, well, it's always dark. Why should we care that Superman's struggling?
Right.
Like they didn't set it up
like,
to where we would care.
Yeah, it's like the dark Superman stories are only impactful because we know that Superman stories generally are not dark. Like Superman's whole thing is hope, and I think the bright coloring of the comics and the cartoon is supposed to be able to be like, okay, yeah, I live in Metropolis, crime happens in the middle of the day, but Superman will will be there, and you know, I don't have to like cower in the shadows like the citizens of Gotham. You know,
Sam is making a face.
Nah,
No,
but
and
I'm not. I'm just saying, like, I think that in order to have a dark Superman be impactful, you must first establish like a Superman who is like doing the job of Superman and like inspiring hope in the people. And you know, you're showing me like the anti-life equation already. Like,
You can't start with
I don't care about
injustice.
Exactly.
right now, I will
I need
100% agree with
Metropolis's
that.
favorite Superman. I need everybody loves Superman,
Right.
and then we can get to everybody turns on Superman.
I think the biggest,
like, to be real, I don't get why they built that Superman a statue in the Metropolis of the DCEU. I didn't see him do enough there and establish any sort of goodwill as Superman between
people.
him and Metropolis
Yep.
to warrant
right.
that kind of a tribute to that character. But that's like the thing that we talked about, Sam, with the all of Zack Snyder's movies, where it's like our comic book knowledge is filling in. It's like on Jurassic Park where they just took the frog DNA and stuck it in for the missing part. But like, you forgot that frogs change sex, so now the Velociraptors is in the forest having sex and laying eggs. Everybody really is gonna die because
It was really gay.
you didn't do. You know what I mean? You didn't do what you were supposed to do and show what needed to be shown. So I think that's going to get us to the point of soft reset. I like the direction that conversation was going. So I feel like I want to talk about who gets to come with us, and who are we saying thank you for your service, give them that gold watch and walking them off the lot, because definitely got to get rid of
Ezra Miller, man.
He doesn't even get a gold watch. Like,
yeah, no, he got some wristwear on. It's different kind of wristwear.
Silver bracelets. That's what he getting.
Yeah, he got to go.
I would say, based on the characters that we have established from Justice League, and even if we take Zack Snyder's Justice League, I have no love for Martian Manhunter, regardless of how they decided to show him, put him in at the end, post credit. I have no love for Martian Manhunter, so he can go.
Like the character or the one that was in the DCEU?
The DCEU. Specifically speaking about the DCEU. Yeah. Because we don't even have all of the established characters. We saw a Green Lantern ring fly off in the big battle. So you set yourself up to bring in a Green Lantern at some point. Safe. You give us hope outside of the established cinematic Green Lantern. He's not DCEU, but he's cinematic. So you give us hope outside of that. Personally, I am okay with Henry Cavill as Superman. I am okay with Ben Affleck as Batman. Gal Gadot, I have no problem with her as Wonder Woman.
But do a better story.
I need to feel like she is not just reacting to everything. I want Princess Diana that I know and love, and not this, I wish I was a real girl princess that they've established.
Well, in their defense, depending on which run of Wonder Woman you read, that's an accurate take.
But I feel like it's like that's good for her solo movie because it is her first time in the land of men, and it's like, oh, what is this ice cream? It's so cold. Oh man! But
even when you do that
in the Justice League movies, she should be a little more like hardened. Like she's been living in the world of men for about 75, 80 years at that point, and she's been living in that world as a beautiful woman. So you know.
Her perception of the world is a little different.
Yeah, and I feel like her characterization should
right. And see,
so it should very much be she's learning. Oh, there's joy in this world, but it's very much she's hard. Like someone's like, "Oh, do you want ice cream?" It's like, "What poison is this?" No, it's tasty.
She doesn't talk like royalty. She doesn't talk like I like that Wonder Woman that's like
Well
I'm
spoken.
better than all this, and I'm
Right.
saying what I mean.
Hippolyta,
And
the character of Hippolyta, Robin Wright Penn, her portrayal of Hippolyta in the DCEU is more accurate to the character of Wonder Woman than Gal Gadot's Diana. Only because she is like, I understand the aspect of her being somewhat naive to things, and I'm okay with that, because even in, you know, comics, animation, things like that, we get that she's making this transition and she has to learn the world. It is cute. It makes for some good, humor moments and things like that. But you have to be careful and really toe the line so that you don't have this doe-eyed, optimistic fantasy running around, and we're expected to believe that she's also this badass. Like, it's very difficult. So what they have to do is they have to kind of lean more like Xena, Warrior Princess, where she's pretty much always a badass and just occasionally shows these moments of naivety. You know what I'm saying? And it's like she has to, like you said, she's royalty. She's a princess. When she's on Themyscira, she understands that what she says makes change, that she runs stuff. And when she comes over to the world of men, she's expecting to run stuff the same way. And she's realizing that things don't quite work the way she's used to them being. So if you're going to do that fish out of water bit, okay, fine. But the way she initially expects things to happen, that part of it has to change. And that's how you not really fix Wonder Woman, but that's how you portray Wonder Woman accurately. And that's really been my only problem with Gal Gadot, is she's so soft and she's so sweet, and
she's not the battle-hardened
Wonder Woman
warrior.
will break your neck if that's what needs to be done. You know what I'm saying? She don't care if what needs to be done. You think that's her, or you think that's how it was written? Both. I think the character is written for Gal Gadot, and since she has been the only person, like, we have Linda Carter to compare to. And like you said, because she doesn't have a huge cinematic presence. But if you go back and you look at any of the animated, even if you just take Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, that Diana was not soft like that. She was not warm and fuzzy and cuddly. She was like here to make things happen. And
do you think Gal Gadot can be directed into that role, or do you think she has to be replaced?
I do think Gal Gadot can be directed into that role, because at this point, I feel like recasting Wonder Woman,
I think it's a bad move.
It's like, because that's a successful one,
you don't want those emails.
She gets to stay off that alone.
Here's what you have to do for the soft reset. While we're picking and choosing the characters that get to stay and who has to go, we have to canonically justify why that character. And so we can say Ezra Miller as Flash has to go because just nothing about his Barry Allen was compelling. He had one scene where his character was even believable as Barry Allen. And that was the one conversation he had with his dad inside the prison. That's the only moment Barry Allen was Barry Allen from comics, from TV, from anything. You can't necessarily pull in Grant Gustin because his character's already established in his world. And if you pull that Earth over, now you're confusing people who watch the show, and don't do that. A character like Cyborg, you've got a Cyborg that exists in Titans. The same Cyborg exists in Doom Patrol, and now you have a cinematic Cyborg, and neither one of those Cyborgs.
Give me Cyborg.
Right, because
why are we even doing Cyborg in Justice League? Like, this is my whole issue, and this is why I wanted to really talk about
an established. Okay,
so the reason why they had Cyborg was because of the mother box. They had to have someone there to kind of bring in the whole dark side. If they didn't have that, he wasn't needed.
But also think about his powers. Cyborg does fit really well with Justice League when you look at it. Like when you think about, like, I get it, he in the past it was Titans, right? Teen Titans. But when they did that switch, at first I side-eyed it, but it made sense. He fits with Justice League.
But he doesn't.
He doesn't
Here's my
there.
issue.
So to go ahead and just build him and put him in the team.
That's what my issue is. I feel like Cyborg is a better character to bring in as, like, we got the established Justice League, and now we're gonna add, like, in Justice League 2, we added the 2 new guys.
Like, we have a liaison.
But I feel like, but I feel like him, so much of it being centered around him and then being cut, but then being put back in, and all this other, like, weird stuff that happened with the whole Cyborg storyline to begin with. I feel like I feel like we kind of, with Cyborg, it's like we don't know which way we're going. If we're gonna have old ass Batman and we're gonna have, like, middle-aged Superman, like, I have a hard time with the, like, kind of age gap as well with, like, the DCEU setup, because it's like part of the reason why Barry felt like Wally as well was because Bruce was like 65.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so he's not going to talk to Bruce like he's 30 and they're both 30, or even if Bruce is 35 and he's 30 and yeah, Bruce has been doing it longer. That's a different conversation than when you look up and he take his shirt off and his scars, he got gray chest hair. You know what I mean? It's a whole different dynamic. So that's really my issue too, is like the balance of everything. It's like Henry Cavill did a great job. I thought he got a raw deal with, like, the scripts and the movies and the pace at which they put those movies on. But if I'm really talking about resetting my universe, he's on the maybe for me right now. I'm moving away from Ben Affleck as Batman. He's too old. I can't build around that. I need a Batman that's going to be here for, like, as long as Robert Downey Jr. play Iron Man, at least. Okay. And the way Batman fights, I can't put that in, like, 7 movies and watch Ben Affleck in between scenes, just like
struggle with that,
like afterwards. A scooter back to his, like, trailer. You know what I mean? Like, I can't watch that. I think with Gal Gadot, I agree, Sam. If we can spruce that up and turn that attitude up to a 10, turn that confidence up to a 10, turn that I don't give a fuck up to a 10, I'm more with that. I think she can do that, but I'm just wondering, like, if they're really writing the character that way, because we see that when she's in combat, but it's like her approach to being unsure about social situations is not the way we're used to Diana doing things. We are used to seeing Diana go into life the same way she goes into battle, like full head of steam, sword swinging, and it is what it is. So I think I'm personally going to leave Cyborg out, because I'm not even going to be telling those stories about mother boxes and Darkseid until, like, 10 years down the road. And I'm bringing in Martian Manhunter on my team, and I'm bringing in John Stewart on my team as a Green Lantern, and that's what we're going to set the movie.
Animated Justice League.
I'm not a John Stewart fan.
I'm doing 4 movies. I'm doing 4 movies. I'm doing Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Justice League.
Back up.
So first movie in my series is Batman.
That's the one I feel you don't need. Let Batman be your central character.
No. I'm not starting off with the pearls and all that. I'm talking Batman.
And I get
year
that.
5.
I get that. But even if even if you do that, establish your other characters.
I need it because
let Batman be your central theme for each character.
So you're basically saying let Batman be the Nick.
Here's why I need it. Here's why I need it. Because in my DCEU, my Nick Fury is actually Amanda Waller. And so rather than at the end of all the movies, she's coming in and talking to the heroes like Nick Fury was to build the Avengers, my Amanda Waller is coming in and scooping up all the villains. And one by one, each movie, she's starting to build her Suicide Squad. That's how I'm doing my delete scenes.
Now, are you
And
going
then,
for
so that's why
Suicide Squad versus?
no, it'll be something where they just move in the shadows and they doing whatever the government wants them to do, as opposed to it being like we're the good guys this time. Like,
so it would basically be the James Gunn Suicide Squad movie,
minus the end when they're like we're heroes.
So what you can do with that, just based on what you're saying, what you can do with that, and I'm still gonna say don't do the Batman movie. But if you do every hero's individual story, let Batman cameo, be a background player in all of the different movies. Because he's Batman. No.
But here's the thing.
He's Batman.
Here's why I need a Batman movie. Because see, not having a Spider-Man movie first works when the kid is a teenager and he's coming onto a team of adults. But I can't have Batman just standing in the shadows like Columbo, just like, hey, you over there, hero. Here's my card. You know what I mean? Like, I need him to have. I need to see the Batmobile. I need to see what kind of Batman we really have. How does he fight? What is his tech? What's his relationship with Alfred? That to me is the kind of stuff where I need to understand the psyche of Batman, in my opinion, more than any of the other like Justice League people, because I feel like everybody else is more archetypes, and because everything about Batman is like, well, if they leave this out, then all this other stuff about Batman goes with it, and if they choose this version, then all this other stuff comes with it. I really do feel like that is the character who I would need to establish that about. I don't have a problem with building this universe around Robert Pattinson Batman either, personally.
Here's how that can work. Because I think I see what you're putting down. I'm gonna try and pick it up and run with it. If you go with Batman first, how that can really tie to other people is Batman has his first super powered villain. So don't do Joker, don't do Penguin.
Nah, Joker's dead in my universe.
I mean, don't shoot yourself in the foot, but definitely later.
Right, leave that door open.
But definitely a super powered villain. And so now when you start going into the other characters, you get Flash, you get Superman, Wonder Woman. In the background, you're going to have Batman viewing, like monitoring, because you're basically able to set yourself up for a Tower of Babel. He's viewing these people as potential enemies. And so when they all come together...
Give me Doom. That's all I always say. Give me Doom on film.
And that's why I just wanted him to be a secondary cameo character in each one, because he's looking, studying, and learning these people.
I am with Sam. I'm really on the page where we build these superhero movies. We got, like, let's say we have a Flash origin story, right? So we get introduced to Flash, to Barry Allen. And then in the background, you know how they love to do their extra scenes or whatever. We get random snippets, like you said, cameos of Batman, where he's like, keep getting intel, you know, like on this person. And you see him in, like you said, every movie. And so then when we do get to a Justice League movie, it makes sense because you've seen Batman in all of these movies. And like you were saying, give him a superpower villain, right? And then he brings that team together. And that can be still your Justice League movie, which is similar to what they did, but we're giving it a better setup. So there's better chances, you know, like it's giving us a better chance for like actually.
And honestly, I'm just moving your Batman movie to the fourth movie, not the first movie.
Yeah.
That way he can be in here, and you can do snippets. Like you can have, just like they had in the first Suicide Squad, where they just had that moment of Ben Affleck jumping on the car, jumping on the Lamborghini and having to save Harley Quinn. Like, give us feats, let us see that this is that established late 20s, early 30s capable Batman that is fully fleshed out in his own right. When you get around to your Batman movie, after you've done your Superman, your Aquaman, your Flash, your Wonder Woman, you've done
You need
those 4
Green Lantern.
movies,
I feel like you also need a Green Lantern.
and your Green Lantern. Or actually, we don't even. Let's see which one we can team. You
Bring
know
in
what?
Green Lantern in Justice League.
Actually, I was gonna say let's do your Flash and Green Lantern as a buddy cop movie. Let those
I
two
feel
team
like
Flash
up.
needs
you have to build them separately, but
Okay.
then
Flash
Okay.
needs
okay.
Okay.
In a buddy
Okay.
cop.
Because if
Just
we're
the
doing a
fact
buddy
that they-
cop movie, it needed to be in his Green Lantern, and it needed to be Jessica Cruz and Simon
Yeah.
Bass. So
Okay. Well, then you have 2 Green Lanterns, and that's
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
not the
But
same.
that's
So,
the top. Yeah, but I'm saying that would be the one.
but it's just the
together.
relationship, the established relationship, canonically via comics and animated. You know what I'm saying? Flash and Green Lantern always kind of.
I mean,
Those
you could do
two
Green
are
Lantern and
friends,
Green
so.
Arrow. I mean, you can go the Brave and the Bold.
You could, and honestly, maybe even going. See, but if you bring in Green Arrow to this
It's too
Justice League
soon.
story, I was gonna say if you bring in Green Arrow to this Justice League story, he is anti-Batman from the jump, and
that would be a really good antithesis to Batman. Like that
That
could be why he joins, because he can't let Batman take over.
But also, it's
Okay, but here's how I'm
what
setting
DC's
this
been
up,
doing
right?
with Green Arrow.
But
You
see,
would
look,
fail this
this is
city.
how I set it up in my universe, right? Instead of it being like Green Arrows in the Green Arrow movie, it's like we got a scene in the Batman movie where they at a gala, because they always at a gala. Who walks in? Oliver Queen. Maybe you know who that name, maybe you don't. We don't have to derail the whole movie. We can just say names
Yeah.
that people know, that people, because Oliver Queen would be at a gala. You know what I mean? Oh, we got a superpower villain. Oh, let's pop over to Star Labs. Who works over there? Cool. Say some names people know. So everybody in the theater can be
Professor
like,
Hamilton.
but then like
Yeah.
we don't have to derail the whole movie to get into it. But then when Batman shows up in the Flash movie, or when you see Bruce Wayne in the Flash movie, it's like, all right, this makes sense. Because my only thing about it too is like with Nick Fury, like he can just show up in like little pieces and parts of the movie because he don't actually have to fight. He on the helicarrier. But you gotta see like Batman like do his business like kind of in a solo way, especially because he's the one that everybody likes to nitpick. He don't have powers, he don't belong, blah 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 blah. Like I don't want to
And
spend
when he
the
has his
Justice
own
League
story, absolutely. But when it's other people's movies, he doesn't need to be fighting.
But here's why it has
No,
to
I'm
be
saying
Batman
I
that
don't want
does
to
it.
spend the Justice League movie where he's in it. I don't
2
want
words.
him having to prove himself that he belongs because he
I
doesn't
got it.
have powers.
I got it. And I'm going to justify why it has to be Batman. 2 words. Y'all know what those words are? Prep time. He cannot be the forefront, jump right into the mix because he is the human, because he does need time. He has to think and figure it out and understand and know their weaknesses and this and this and this. He's going to be the one that is methodical, plans it out, thinks
Creeping.
before he acts. Right. He's going to take his time and do it
Violating
right.
privacy.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, hey, you do what you got to do because crime never sleeps. You know, it's just that would be the character of Batman. If you put him in at the 4th movie or right before you do your Justice League, you give us that solo Batman movie to establish his capability and establish that, okay, he really is up here with the big dogs and he can hold his own. I'm with you, and I understand that part of it, but I don't think you start with the Batman movie, because if you start with the Batman movie, not only do you have to now like really jump the shark with everybody else, you know what I'm saying? Like you can
I don't
kind
have to
of
jump the shark with nobody
meander in.
because
Well,
nobody has to come in the movie that I don't want to come into the movie. So it's like if you see Clark Kent doing a news report on TV that Batman is watching, it's like, you really think we gonna make a Batman movie and put Clark Kent in here and he ain't Superman, he just some dude named Clark Kent on the news? Absolutely not. But I don't need to derail the whole Batman movie shoehorning people in. But if Batman is the person building my team, I gotta establish, in my opinion, I would I want to establish him first. I don't want to. I'm not one of those people that's like intrigued by the shadowy figure, and then all of a sudden they pop out.
But Batman
is
like, established.
Batman,
we don't have to establish him. He's Batman. He's the most established
Well,
character
Right,
He's
ever.
the
he
most
can be the
established.
Spider-Man,
There's
in which case
there's
you
a
build
lot
people
of
up and then
Batmans.
he's there.
Yes.
But there's
Here's
a
the
lot
thing.
of Batmans. I want to say this who my Batman is.
But that
And you
aspect
because
is
he
like
do that.
Huh?
So when we're talking soft reset, because you know we're talking about who we want to bring and who we don't want to bring. I really want that Birds of Prey reset,
Yes.
and I really need Vixen in it.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's one of my favorite characters, and she's just not, even in the comics, she's just not utilized much. But
See, and I'm like,
You know, that's a really good
Shiara,
jumping
while
off
you at it.
point. Let's go in. We have all these people we want to bring in or people we want to replace. Fan cast. Let's talk. I mean, I'll start with Martian Manhunter. Carlos Esposito for me. I think he could be that gravitas, that person
Black?
who's. I mean,
Oh, you
Yeah,
said
actually-
Giancarlo Esposito. Okay.
in just about
I thought you
every
said Carlos
version.
Esposito.
No. A Giancarlo Esposito. You know what? I think in like every version, because he would do really good as the gruff detective.
mhm.
You take, in fact, take the character from what's the movie? Kaiser Soze.
Oh, you're talking about
Usual
Unusual
Suspects. Giancarlo Esposito was the one waiting on the facts, so he does that detective bit right there. Okay, I'm with it.
I
We
just
can see
I
it.
just don't think we would have him long enough,
Yeah.
because you're
he's,
talking
like, up
about
there.
right.
But
you-
most of his characters
Wait.
going to be CGI.
But does
I
he
get
also
it.
have to be there for a long time?
Most of
Yes.
his characters. CGI,
I feel like if we
and
want to do this right, if you really look at how long these people are in their Marvel contracts, because honestly, that's kind of the best model right now, right?
Like I'm signing people to like 5-6 movie deals. Like I'm not signing nobody in no
If-
movie to movie. Like that's how DC got in this mess to begin with.
in 5 to 6 movie deals, we're not talking about a movie they're doing every year. So because there's movies in between, so they're gonna be there like 10 years.
I also
Okay.
personally would rather just go younger. I do like whoever's putting it out there for him to play Professor X. I'm down with that. But
I did
I
see that.
definitely feel like all my heroes, I want my heroes in the like 28 to like 40 age range, so we can get a
28 to
good
40.
What if-
So
aging
What if
over years.
What if DC did a soft reset, almost like X-Men Future Past type ish? And so we had the old characters, and we kind of
have the
flashed
older
it.
characters in the version of their younger selves.
And we kind of flashed it forward, and then that's how we reset our universe with like a whole speedster, like a whole speedster thing. So now the universe is reset, and we're redoing it from there. Because then we can still we start with what our Ben Affleck Batman. We start with Henry, and then we realize we have to go younger because we're restarting a whole universe. That's basically what X-Men realized. The people
Yeah.
were too old. They had to restart it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get that,
And
and
they still
that
think-
I could definitely see that. So let's start with which characters. If we do a reset, which characters do we bring in? We have our Trinity.
I mean, you definitely got the big guns: Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash. I think those 4 are your 4 foundational jail members.
Okay.
Personally,
who's
I'm
our-
cool if
who's
we
our
want to
Flash?
bring Henry Cavill over. I'm cool with that. I think we go younger for Batman. I don't know if Robert Pattinson is really the right tone. Like his movie, I liked him as Batman in that world, but I feel like if we're going like big muscles CGI, you might just have to be an Elseworlds tale, brother, and we gonna go ahead and
I don't-
get.
I don't think he's got the
Yeah.
range. Like he has a very specific Batman, and Batman, there's a range there, and I don't think he has the range.
Touche.
Yeah.
So then who do we think would?
That's a really good question.
I mean, so many times they've casted Batman a number of times in the past. So what we need out of our Batman character is a large enough person to make it believable. A large enough person to make it believable for the physicality, but someone who's also suave and makes it believable
For
that
Bruce Wayne.
right, makes it believable that he's intelligent enough to play the Bruce Wayne role. In the past, they had DJ Contra as Superman and Armie Hammer. And when you look at someone like a Henry Cavill, it's almost like, so what about Tom
Jensen
Hopper?
Ackles.
Wait, who?
Jensen Ackles.
So,
Sorry.
Soldier Boy on The Boys.
Play dramatic.
I mean, we've seen him be rough in The Boys. We've seen him be charming in Supernatural.
So pull up an image of Tom Hopper. Tom Hopper is, and it's like, why do we always have to go English? But Tom Hopper is the guy from Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
And he's a big guy. And so you got to have somebody. It's weird. You got to have somebody big, but they should not be bigger than Superman.
He comes across as someone who could be Superman because he kind of has that whole like, I'm strong but a little dumb.
And that's the character, because if you go with the Hitman's wife's bodyguard,
okay,
he has a little bit more serious role opposite Ryan Reynolds, because of course Ryan Reynolds is always a comic relief, so he's your straight man in the movie. I think Tom Hopper, given the opportunity, from what I've seen, he shows enough range. Like, I think it's a feat to play that dumb, because if you listen to him talk in an interview and then you watch him as the guy from Umbrella Academy, like, it takes some acting chops to be that dumb. And so I feel like if he just got a chance to be himself a little more, it might fit. And Tom Hopper is somebody that I could see as a realistic. And of course, that's one of the things, because of course you talk about the tone and what version of the character, like, we're not doing Batman year 1 where Pattinson is. We're not, well, Batman, that's probably like year 2 Pattinson. But you want an established Batman, but he still has to be young enough, but not so young that it's a baby Batman. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's got to be opposite Henry Cavill. And I feel like somebody like Tom Hopper, it's I guess it's kind of up to you where he stands. And if you're doing the fan casting, to me, he's somebody that when I look at him, yes, I kind of see a certain character, but I also see the potential for someone who could be charming and charismatic and a great Bruce Wayne, but could get down and dirty and be physical and be every bit of the Batman that I need him to be.
But we also need to be a detective, and that's what's kind of throwing me off. Is like, you have this guy who is strong, absolutely, physically he could fit it, and sure, he might be charming, but he just looks dumb. Not just his character. Like, you look at his face and you're like, and no offense, Tom Hopper, I'm sure you can kick my ass, and I'm sure you're pretty smart.
But I think when you put that mask on him, everybody looks menacing with the dark eye makeup and the mask.
And
because I don't feel like
I'm
not scared of Robert Pattinson, but when he puts that mask on, maybe I'm not gonna fuck with him. And I think the
this
mask
is what I'm
take care of that.
This is what I'm gonna say. I feel like he's more of he doesn't feel dark enough to me. Like, I understand what you're saying about him looking dumb. I don't even think it's dumb. It's just like he feels like you cast him as like the boy next door, the innocent, like the sweet kid, maybe the sweet kid who's actually like selling drugs on the low in high school, but like
So
his
I'm not opposed to the Jensen
presentation
Ackles.
is more.
So I'm not opposed to Jensen Ackles. I'm really upset that Richard Madden is already in Marvel.
He would be a good
Because
Batman.
he would be a great Bruce Wayne in Batman. Like
Honestly, I
Wait,
mean,
is
he
he
flew
still
to
alive?
Son. I think he's out of Marvel now.
well, Eternals they had one movie.
Yeah, and at the very end, sorry,
Yeah.
spoiler alert,
Oh,
flies
true.
into the sun.
I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you're right.
He
So,
would be. He
no,
would
you'd
be
be
a
great.
good Batman.
That's
See, and somebody like a Richard Madden, honestly, I picture him more as the like strong-jawed Clark Kent type.
I think he has the acting chops to be both.
yes, but he also gives you darker off rip. So like he could be made to be, the
Okay,
symbol of hope to
okay.
be Superman. Think of him as Icarus, even in the Eternals.
You
no
just
matter how
put that little curl in his forehead and it's Superman.
yes.
Even his Icarus character to me was Superman.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. But
I mean,
also
that is
you see
Marvel
how
Superman.
but you see how dark also he gets as Icarus
Yeah.
too, right? So
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
I feel like they made him brighter when he's clean shaven, but when he has like a beard and everything, he definitely gives you darker. Like even if you just do a Google search of him, his images look darker.
I can accept Richard Madden. And
Also,
honestly, there's been a lot
All
of
right.
a lot of people who have crossed over. So if we go with Richard Madden for Batman,
Right, he's mid-30s. We got some time with him.
so we go Richard Madden for Batman. I'm okay with that. I like him over Jensen Ackles. I'll say that.
I'm okay with that because like Richard Madden in Bodyguard, I was trying to look it up. In Bodyguard, no, he plays that detective role pretty like stellar.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I feel like he has the chops for it. So if we do Richard Madden for Batman, who are we
Flash.
bringing as our Superman? Flash is I feel like that's a harder
I'm
one.
still doing
Because we
Henry
got
Cavill.
Henry Cavill that we think we can keep.
We're gonna keep Henry, okay? And so
I think that's a good comparison to have Henry Cavill and Richard Madden. I think that's a good balance.
they are.
So, since we were watching The Boys, what about putting Jack Quaid on a workout regimen and making him your Flash?
No.
He's
No.
quirky
I can't
enough.
see him as no superhero. And it would be too similar to his like teleportation powers on the Boys.
But I actually so I'm not opposed to it because it does give me the Flash is kind of quirky and like it does give me Grant Gustin kind of vibes. And I love Grant Gustin as Barry Allen. I am a fan of what he's done with that character and really made it his own. And Jack Quaid, I do think he could pull it. Because Barry Allen is not, it's not like he's a smooth guy.
Yeah, he's very awkward.
Right. And Jack Quaid might not.
I just feel like I would be watching it like I don't know. I just feel like I'd be watching it the whole time, just like.
But if he's a good enough actor, you won't. Because there are a lot of people that I never saw in roles, and then they did it, and I'm like, oh wow.
And seeing that was my thing with Tom Hopper. You know what I'm saying? Like you have this, given the opportunity to do something different, I think that would give him that was where he would shine. If we see him as this like dumb, quirky character, but to like watch him and see him do something else, I think he could.
His parents are legends. I think he could do it. Dennis Quaid is his daddy.
Yeah,
actually, he was made to do some action here and there.
To go to Tom Hopper, he's done serious roles. Like I'm pretty certain he was in Game of Thrones. He's been in several stuff, but he's never had an opportunity to show that. And so I'm very hesitant to even give him the opportunity because I haven't seen that. Whereas Richard Madden, he's shown it in several ways that he has the chops.
Look at everything Heath Ledger did before he did Joker. You have to sometimes let people
you got to take a risk.
Heath Ledger had Brokeback Mountain to show that he could do something different and dark.
Have you seen Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard?
I have not. Granted,
it's a. I won't even say it's a small role. It's a supporting role, but just check him out in that, and he's something different. So, okay. So if not Jack Quaid, is there any other thoughts
Well,
for
maybe
Flash?
I would say if I'm
Andrew
with you,
Garfield?
okay. He's too okay. So
He's too Wally.
He's too
Well,
Wally.
who's to say we have to have Barry Allen?
you're right because if we're
That
talking
was gonna
Justice
be my
League
question.
animation, it's Wally.
I'm okay with. It will be difficult for me to not see Spider-Man on the screen,
That's also what I was going to say.
but it's not to say that I can't do it.
I mean,
it's not to say that
after
he
his
doesn't come
performance in
in.
Banner Under Heaven or Under the Banner of Heaven, like, no, he has that asset where he can play the not even the detective,
No.
but the
Nothing.
science guy. Okay,
Nothing about his acting ability in this case. Just I don't have an attachment to the character of Icarus,
okay.
I
That's true.
I
but I
have
do have a little bit of an
suggestion for Barry.
attachment to Peter Parker.
That's true.
All right, who you got, Jeff?
Cole Sprouse.
Yes, hell yes, I'm with it.
I
100%. Do it.
am.
Run it. I'm good with that.
Okay.
I am good with
Okay.
that.
All right. So we
Okay.
got Richard Madden. We keeping Henry. We got Cole Sprouse. We're gonna keep Gal for now, right?
Yeah.
Everybody pause. Everybody pause.
Yeah.
Not unrelated, but Tom Hopper, I think we would be great as a Booster Gold, but I'm gonna
Wait.
Ooh.
What if we
Right.
let's not even go Booster Gold. Because what if we put Tom Hopper as Aquaman?
Okay, I can see
his
that.
blonde
Still
hair.
too.
Like, he has that goofiness he can go, but he can go more serious. Like in Game of Thrones, he was more serious.
That
But
would be
that's still more
think
brutish.
about
and
it.
What
cynical.
That would be your fish out of water. Literally. That would be your person who's
Well,
not
Aquaman-
used to, because you were getting rid of the Jason Momoa Aquaman. We're not doing the cowboy in the water.
Absolutely.
So let's go
Absolutely.
back to our
He's not
very
even in my
standard.
first one. He's not
So
even
let's
in
go
my
to
first
our
like
Regal.
Justice League.
Okay. So if we're not using
Remember, I said
Aquaman,
I would make him the villain first. I would make him like I would bring him in as the like I hate all the like land dwellers, like when he walks up out to sea and basically like declares war for pollution, blah 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 blah. But really, it's his like brother pulling all the strings and
As
stuff. I
an
would basically
EP
do that.
as an EP of this DC reboot, I'm just gonna say keep Tom Hopper's name on the chalkboard.
You gotta
Keep his
roll.
name out your motherfucking
I'm
mouth.
telling you, I'm getting
Right.
Booster Gold vibes. If we're
Booster
doing a
Gold,
good
I dig
Flashpoint
that.
paradox, I'm getting real Booster Gold
Either-
from Tom Hopper.
Either Booster Gold.
Okay.
What's the Green Lantern everybody hates?
Guy Gardner.
Oh,
Guy
God.
Gardner.
Guy.
So, okay. So which characters do we still need?
We need Martian Manhunter. We need Lex Luthor. We need
Lantern.
Green
Oh,
Lantern and figure out which one we want. I know you said John Stewart, but we have options.
I mean, we can do John Stewart. I just think he's actually kind of boring as a Green Lantern, but that's just me. His constructs are very.
He was in the military.
Yeah,
of
his
course.
I know
construct-
they're not imaginative. You know, Kyle Rayner is like fun, and then like
Very, very practical.
right, and like Kyle Rayner's fun. Simon Baz is a little out of the box. Like you gotta, you know.
Let's be real. In the Justice League movie, it ain't gonna be a lot of screen time for John Stewart.
You're
It's
right.
gonna
I
be-
mean,
Maybe in the second one when we go to space, but if we fighting Lex Luthor
I
in
have,
this
I
first
have
one,
to
it's
say
like
that so far, I think our best casting, and maybe you know what our first movie is. Our first movie is going to be after we do our Flashpoint soft reset. We do our first movie, Cole Sprouse as Flash. Set the tone, and that right there is how we come out with Cole Sprouse. You know what? I will
we gotta send an email or something.
I will allow the Batman movie after this, because if you do Cole Sprouse Flash first, and then you do the Richard Madden Batman right after that, I think we have now established a strong cinematic showing of two important characters.
But Cole, okay, so are we talking Cole for Wally or are we talking Cole for Barry?
I was thinking Barry.
I was about to say, for me, Flash is always Barry, especially Justice League Flash.
But that's not when we talk about how we love the animation. You know, the animation is Wally.
For me,
okay.
When you talk about Justice League, it's Barry.
I
Justice
agree,
League is Hal Jordan, Barry Allen.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? Like you have.
But
to
I do think we need
original.
a little diversity, so we got to throw Jon Stewart in there. I think,
and I have no problem with Jon Stewart. And Jon Stewart needs to be when we get to the Green Lantern movie, it needs to be mostly like your supporting cast needs to just be Jon Stewart. You know what I'm saying? So that we can get Jon Stewart his spinoff movie as a result.
Can I just say, when we have a Jon Stewart movie, can we just have a cameo of Ryan Reynolds? He doesn't have to be Green Lantern. He doesn't have to be Hal Jordan. Just to have him in there, just to fuck with people.
Flying around in the background. You know what? Go as far as to make him Sinestro in that movie.
He might not do it because he still got his Marvel contract, doesn't he?
But he's just cameoing as Sinestro in that movie.
Just make his Green Lantern movie a movie that happened in the universe. So they like made a movie about the first Green Lantern, and it was like Ryan Reynolds as Hal Jordan, but Hal Jordan is really like some dude from like 40 years previously who was, and so it's like old Hal Jordan.
That's Justice like, Society Hal Jordan. No, I'm with you. That's Justice Society. Yeah.
But then they tried to make a sexy movie with Ryan Reynolds and it failed. And they can just like talk crap about it.
My only thing is Cole Sprouse age-wise. He gives me really, I mean, I don't know how old he is. He's not that much younger actually than Richard Madden, but he does give much younger. You know, he plays a Riverdale teen character. Yes, he's not that much. He can't be, what, I'm 32. But, he's got to be like 27, right? Something around there.
But that young vibe pairs really well with what Barry typically does when he's working behind the scenes as a crime investigator. Not a crime investigator. What does he do?
Forensic scientist.
Forensic scientist. He gives that vibe. Like he's that young, kind of awkward, but kind of cute in the way.
Oh, he's 29.
Yeah. So like he fits that role.
Yeah.
And so
he was like our age when he was on TV. So it feels like he's older, but it's just because he's been famous for so long and we're getting old and the people who are famous are.
I mean, well, yeah, they've always, you know, they were always younger than me. I guess when I was watching them, I'm like, you know, 2 years, 3 years is a big difference when you're a certain age. But once you get to a certain age, it's not a big difference anymore.
Yeah.
Well, see, 18 and 21 is a big difference of 3 years.
And I was watching them when they were like 10
21
and 13,
and 24 is a big difference in age.
Right.
But 29 and 32 is not that big a difference.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. It's not. But like when I was watching him on Sweet Life, you're talking about he was like 10 and I'm 13. I'm like, these kids. Like
this kid.
Right.
You know, back when before I was a teenager. Yeah.
Right.
I get it.
So who do we think
Green Lantern?
Or Green Lantern?
Lex Luthor. Yeah, let's
Luthor.
Okay, so the question then becomes, are we going to introduce a major villain? And is this major villain going to carry us a couple of movies, or is he just in the Superman movie?
I absolutely do not want DC to do the Marvel thing of killing off their villain after every movie.
Lex should be the villain in the Superman movie, but it should be part of a larger plot that comes out in the Justice League movie.
Yeah, I think whenever we're introducing some villain to Superman, the villain has to be separate of Lex Luthor, but pulled the strings by Lex Luthor.
So are we inspired at all by the Lex Luthor that was on animated series?
Absolutely not. Oh yes, I thought you were about to say.
I'm inspired by the Lex Luthor.
He got to be bald headed.
No, and I get like some stuff like kind of automatically, as a character, Lex Luthor will be a bald person. You know what I'm saying? Like
He's
that's
bald. He's
part of who he is.
entrepreneurial. He's cunning.
But we need. Okay, so I'm just gonna say
He's
Cody
smooth,
Bell.
He's disarming.
Cody Bell
Who is that?
from the game.
Who?
The
What was
TV
that?
show, The Game.
Black.
Cody Bell.
Is that
Cody
who I
Bell
think it
is a big, light-skinned
He
black
on
dude.
Walker right now.
Right, I was like, is that who I think it is? What we think we're talking about? I didn't even look
Is
it
this
up. But
okay? Is this the type of universe where we can posit that a black person can become Lex Luthor? Because if it is, I'm down. But I just want to know how fantastical we being right now.
how
Okay,
good
so
of
if
an
I-
actor is he really?
So let me just say,
Luther's whiteness was never a part of his character.
Yeah,
so I don't think
it
that
was
matters. His
necessary.
race
And
does
I-
not matter.
I really think that, like in the animated series, it was very ambiguous.
Yes, I do think it's actually not a big
And
deal.
I hate to be that guy, but that's literally why, wink, wink, I picked Cody Bell.
I can see it.
Because there's just that touch of ambiguity there, but it's still very much like. So I remember I watched Cody Bell, of course, on The Game, and he was also in
The Gifted.
what's the show? When You're a Spy, with Jeffrey Donovan.
Oh, Burns. Burn
Burn
Notice.
For notice.
Burn Notice. So
Michelle.
there's a
He was
bit of
funny there.
action. There's a bit of espionage that takes place. You know what I'm saying? So he gives me that capability to feel like he can present himself as smart. Man looks good in a damn suit. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? And if I was going to have to
Alright,
try to believe cinematically that this person is the head of this major corporation, we still have to be mindful of how long he can be in the movies, how many movies he can be in, how long he's going to be around. And that's why I ask, is it a one and done Lex Luthor? Or is this like an overarching 5-6 movie, couple of cameos? He's always there. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
He's early 40s.
Well, okay, here's
he's
my
47.
question: Is
47.
this Lex Luthor like is Lex Luthor fighting, or is this like I'm the brains behind the operation Lex Luthor?
I feel like a proper Lex Luthor is I'm the brains behind the operation, but don't piss me off and put me in this suit.
Della would say the suit is what it is.
And if I get in this suit,
He can be Iron Man.
I can
But a bit.
I can do it. Because Don Cheadle's still getting in a suit, and we believe that.
I'm not opposed to that
asking
one.
for casting purposes.
I actually thought of what's his name from Dexter. Is it Michael Hall or whatever who plays Dexter? But
Mhm.
I'm not opposed to Cody Bell.
I think so. Something that I've been thinking about is when I think about the character Lex Luthor, it's like how he's so clearly evil. Like, how do all these people just like fall for this over and over and over? And so I was kind of also thinking about people who may
Charismatic.
come across as like charismatic and even nice, but then they're gonna like flip a switch. And so I got two unconventional names because you don't generally think of them as villains.
All right.
Okay.
One, Stanley Tucci.
I
Two.
can see
I
Stanley.
love Stanley Tucci.
Yeah, I'm totally okay with Stanley
two-
Tucci.
This was gonna sound crazy because when you think of him, you don't think of him as bald, but he is now like accepted the fact that he's bald. John Travolta.
No,
Look up a bald picture of John Travolta.
It's not that.
it's not
who
his
John Travolta
baldness.
is.
It's he. No,
It's John Travolta.
Yeah, no.
That's why. In that world, he has to be the kind of person who walks into a room and everyone loves him. generally, like at least how we start off, right? He's got to be. So maybe he's doing smooth moves. Maybe at the gala, he's like, what? Like, this is where I'm thinking about Lex Luthor having to be too. I don't want some dude like crouched over in corner, bald head, scowling at the gala. Like, you clearly like don't fit. It's like when they draw like
You want Lex Luthor on the
Jesus
dance floor
and
doing
like
disco.
right.
But that's why
I want him working.
That's why the Tucci and the Cody Bell work for me because of that.
See, I see Cody Bell as like I'm trying to prove I can stand toe to toe with like Superman. Whereas I feel like Stanley Tucci is more like nobody should be that powerful, and I'm gonna figure out a way to like bring him down using like my resources. And he seems like a person who would like need to stand toe to toe with Superman. No offense to Stanley Tucci, he's in very fine shape from what I've seen, but he's not Superman.
I mean, I'm okay with based on that critique of Lex Luthor, I'm okay with Stanley Tucci for that reason. However, I think a character like Cody Bell is still going to present you with all the positive warm fuzzies and can flip that switch. And give us that little bit of crazed, maniacal villain that we just can't.
Let's make him Martian Manhunter.
No,
what was that?
He's not giving me that. No, but like the reason I'm okay with the reason I'm okay with the reason Cody Bell, for me, Lex Luthor, like he sometimes does get in his thing where he feels like he can stand toe to toe with Superman. I feel like he kind of goes back and forth. Like sometimes it's like, oh, nobody should have that much power, and then it's like maybe I should have that much power. Like you gotta get like, and I feel like Cody Bell is not a small guy, and my like how I see Luthor and how we see him, and even in the comics or the animated series, he still is a guy that seems to be fit, seems to be have a decent stature. And when you get him in that suit like Iron Man, it's not like he's a hoe to begin with to play with. He just know he's not superpowered. Right.
Well, I mean, here's the thing about Lex Luthor. It was never about I feel like I can go toe to toe as long as I have the right equipment. It was I can outsmart Superman.
Yeah.
And having this suit allows me to take care of that physicality, but it's all about me outsmarting him.
Right, because I'm already smarter than him, and now I can actually beat his butt. Like,
so Stanley Tucci gives the whole like I want to outsmart him because no one that dumb should have all that power.
Stanley Tucci, I don't see. Even if you put Stanley Tucci in the armor, I don't
that
buy
part.
that.
It's hard to I can.
I don't buy that.
And I guess that's the question: is do we want to put it to where we have Armor Mech Luthor?
As a comic fan, I always want to think of the possibility, especially if we have a younger Batman, a younger Superman, a younger, you know what I'm saying? Like if we're aging down and I'm looking long term, at some point I want a Legion of Doom, and at some point I need to think that this Luthor could be that Luthor. And when I see Stanley Tucci, I see a little bit of.
We don't have the time frame either with Tucci.
I see a little bit of Gene Hackman. I see a little bit of Kevin Spacey, where we are just looking at a brain going against the brawn.
Wasn't he in Shazam though? I mean, he could take on Shazam.
No, that wasn't Stanley Tucci. That was the guy from that was Mark Strong.
Okay, I'm sorry. White people look the same to me.
Yeah, they look good.
But no. Like honestly, Mark Strong was a backup candidate after Cody Bell, but because he's not available. Because he's Zavala, he's not available to be Lex Luthor also. So I had to take Mark Strong off. But that was when Jeff specifically said our Lex Luthor was bald. Mark Strong was the very first person that came to mind. But it's like, no, we can't. We've already tapped him.
But if we're doing a soft reset.
Yeah, Mark Strong was I could see why that would be.
Like to me, Mark Strong was
but Shazam, we
underutilized
don't
as
need to
Shazam.
touch. No,
Right.
I don't.
And because we're leaving Mark Strong alone in Shazam and we're not resetting that.
Shazam doesn't need to be touched. It's
Okay.
that was.
So
I feel like it was
we got
pretty
our
masterful.
Batman, we got our Superman, we have our Flash. We're
needing
postponing
Martian
Green Lantern
Manhunter.
for the moment. Where do we stand on this Lex Luthor? I'm okay with Stanley Tucci outside of Cody Bell, but I'm still arguing for Cody Bell.
I'm fine with either or.
I think I'm with you on the Cody Bell.
Cody Bell, 6'3", 183 pounds, not a little dude, menacing, but sweet looking, looks good in the suit, looks like he could be a CEO or some shit, but also looks like he get in that ass if it came down to it. Watch the TV show The Game. I think he'll be perfect for it.
I mean, I don't think The Game is the best way to describe it, but I'll give you Burn Notice because I watched both.
Burn Notice for sure. Burn Notice for sure. But I mean, in The Game, he was kind of a dumb. They like kind of had him as a dumb jock, but he had
really
his
tight
moments.
With money, yeah.
But he had his moments where when he got angry, that was what I was kind of thinking as far as
he was a jerk. He was that team captain, and yeah.
And so being able to flip that switch, I think that works. Do we want to revisit Martian Manhunter? Because like Lance Reddick is the first choice anytime I think Martian Manhunter. And I don't know that Lance Reddick is our long-term character. But yeah. Just because the way Lance Reddick speaks, I think is very Martian Manhunter-esque.
I could see that. I mean, I think we'd have more time with him than no, how old is he? Well, him and Giancarlo, they'd be the same amount of time. He just
couple of movies.
Right.
I mean, if he was a little younger, I would say Jimmy Jean Lewis, the Haitian from Heroes. He's 53 though, so I don't know if that fans him.
Yeah, I feel like.
No, what's his name?
What
Kofi
about
Sirobi.
He's too young, I feel like. What about what's his name from
Shapeshifter.
Being? What is it from Being Mary Jane?
Say that name again, Kofi Sirobi?
Yeah, he's too young.
Well, if he's
Or
a
somebody from,
shapeshifter, I mean, we could go with someone who's older because then the fights are just in CGI anyway.
But what about so the person I'm thinking of, what is this man name? Give me a second. He's from Being Mary Jane, but he's her drug addicted brother. Who is he? Why is it so? Why do I cannot find this man's name? It's not the Paul Patterson. I cannot find him.
For Jon Stewart, what's his name? Homeboy from Moonlight.
Marshala
Ali, or you're talking about
Trevante Rhodes.
Oh. I mean,
it's about time for him to be in the superhero something.
Yeah. I could see that. I could be down with that. Does the jury abide?
I'm not against it.
She don't want Jon Stewart anyway, so.
No, I said we need to do it. I said we needed the diversity.
You know what? We can have it to where he is training oh shoot, who's the other one? The one that's the artist, the one that you actually
Kyle Rayner.
Kyle Rayner. Who would you have as Kyle Rayner?
That I haven't. Okay, Richard Brooks from Martian Manhunter. That's his name. But because he's too old to me, he's still 59, but he's too old to be Jon Stewart because I actually would have been okay with that if he was younger. I don't know. I hadn't really thought about really who I would have as Kyle Rayner because I just know they never put him in movies, so I don't think about it as much. Let's see.
So if we're gonna do Jon Stewart, or actually not even Jon Stewart, I will throw this in for Martian Manhunter.
Okay.
From the movie The Harder They Fall, Eddie Gathegi. He was the guy that played Bill Pickett. He was the one who like kept trying to get into the battle. Like he wanted to have the quick draw contest. And towards the end of the movie, he ends up technically losing.
You talking about Lakeith Stanfield?
Not Lakeith. Not
You
Lakeith.
said Bill Pickett? Oh, the boy. The younger one, I mean.
Yeah.
He's gonna have to bulk up. He is a very thin person.
He's not that thin. And the CGI costume will, it'll take a little bit. But I mean, for him, it's just like, put on a little bit of pounds. But it's
dark.
In my head, he is someone who he gets on screen. I'm gonna pay attention, especially if he's a Green Lantern.
Didn't he play Darwin in X-Men First Class?
He is Darwin. Oh my God. Yeah, he is Darwin.
So
damn.
No, wait. No,
he's absolutely right. No,
yes, you're right. Okay, he does. Yes, yes. Okay, you're right.
Well, then you know what? This would be his superhero redemption story right here.
You need one because
won't be no.
I think we got everybody
him right off.
So. And we have an hour and a half. This is the longest episode we ever did.
We are covering the entire DCEU.
The whole thing.
True. We are covering the whole DCEU. All right, let's just go around. We're gonna get final thoughts from everybody. I'll go last, then close us out. Let's start with who want to go first. Actually, Sam, you go first. That way you don't talk for a long time.
Gotcha.
So closing thoughts. What comic stories would you want covered? And then other thoughts.
I think, as we pointed out, I think Tower of Babel or Doom is a really good way. After you go ahead, you do your Flashpoint, just do a reset. You almost waste the story of Flashpoint, but it's an easy reset.
I mean, you could do Justice League Apocalypse and have like a magic restart from John Constantine.
You could, but then you have to introduce. Then you got to introduce all of Constantine and the whole Justice League Dark and that whole realm. So you keep it simple. You go with the quick reset on Flashpoint. Once you reestablish your characters, you come back. You do a Tower of Babel, or you go with Justice League Doom, something along those lines. The biggest problem for the DCEU is picking a continuity. Are you going to do New 52? Are you going to do Rebirth? Are you going to do Silver Age? Are you going to do Golden Age? Trying to get a mesh up of all of these timelines with these characters doesn't work because you have a different kind of character. And I think that's a problem with some of the world building and where we fall flat on some of the origin stories. I like our recast idea. Pick a time, stay in that time. That's how you fix DCEU.
All right. Ty.
All right. Well, he took my Tower of Babel. But no, I agree. I think doing that soft reboot allows you to kind of pick and choose what you want to keep and how you want to change. And they need to have a cohesive direction. Like they need someone who can be like, let's map out this story for 10 years at least. So that way we can build a cohesive arc to follow. So I absolutely agree that Tower of Babel will be great. I absolutely do love the idea of Aquaman being a villain at first and then turning on to the team. I just want them to give us a live action of the animated movies because those are just beautifully done. Marvel animation has nothing on DC animation.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's why, like, when you talk Tower of Babel, Doom is basically the watered down version, right? Animated ish, right? So Doom would be the easiest way to do it. So I think we're all on the same page as far as that being one of the major stories they need to actually bring on screen. I think if we're doing Green Lantern, we could do a version of First Flight with the animation there, and get those characters in that we want for the Green Lantern movie. But the way, to me, like we said, is absolutely a soft reset. The easiest way is to use Flashpoint. I know, like I said, it doesn't have to be a waste of it. I get that, how frustrating it is to use it that way, but it doesn't have to be a waste. It could be done well. We'll see. Yeah, we will see. But I think that's the big thing. It's just that soft reset, leaving Shazam how it is, because that could fit into a new universe. Like, that needs to go untouched. I really think that's a masterpiece. I think it needs to be left alone. But Ty, you had another thought?
I do have another thought. What if we don't waste Flashpoint? Like, Barry Allen goes back in time and it soft resets. And that's why Flashpoint, when it happens, is going to be that much more meaningful, because he knows better, but he still wants to save his mom.
And that's fair, because you can do a couple of timeline resets with the Flash without actually doing Flashpoint. If we're being honest, they do it basically in the show on the CW a couple times. So I guess you could do that if you really wanted to. But yeah, I think we're all on page with the soft reset. It can be salvaged, but only some of the characters can stay.
All right, and I'm gonna hop in and say, one, I agree, soft reset. I want to find another way besides Flashpoint. I think, honestly, Crisis or some sort of Crisis-ish event
On both
makes
Earths,
more sense
yes.
to me,
No, you could do
because
Crisis on both
that will
Earths.
explain. Yeah, because to me, what happens then is, like, it explains why Batman looks different and Wonder Woman looks different, or
And
Wonder
we're talking
Woman
about
looks the
animated
same.
movies.
Yeah, so I would probably, because I still just feel like the story of Flashpoint, like, I know Flashpoint is what creates, like, or establishes, like, parallel universes, but we ain't got to do it exactly like that. And I think that story just deserves to be told with, like, an actor who is not constantly being, like, arrested or on the run from the law, and in a universe that is really, really established. I think the biggest thing I would say they need is they need a caretaker for the DCEU. They need to find someone who is not necessarily someone like they had with Zack Snyder, who's very much involved in the visual storytelling, but they need someone like Kevin Feige, who is just there to connect the dots and connect the strings and really say, like, this is how this piece can fit into the puzzle. This is what we need. We need more of this, we need more of that, and to be able to say, when we introduce these characters, we're going to introduce them in this way. We're going to introduce Guardians of the Galaxy with, like, this jukebox musical space opera vibe, and that's going to be, like, their thing. That's going to be, and so we can establish those types of things with these DC characters as well. And I think if someone was there doing that, instead of just being like, what's the fastest way we can get to a Justice League movie, which is the fault of, like, the board and the shareholders, not any of the creators, in my opinion, outside of the fact that, like, you took money to do a job that pretty much anybody who does anything creative can tell you was impossible. Like, you can't skip that many steps and expect people to, like, understand the story that you're trying to tell. So I think it's really it all kind of just boils down to just, like, look at the respect that you pay to IP, which is, I think, partially, like, the ethos of the show. Like, the IP is there and it's successful for a reason, and it's not just this, like, lifeless thing for you to, like, siphon off of. It's something that, has brought people, like, joy and happiness, and it has a life of its own that goes beyond, like, your control as the person creating it, or your control as the person distributing it. And I think Marvel really, really understands that. I mean, Disney as a company as a whole, like, understands that. That's pretty much the whole like basis of how they market all of their IP, down to like having people who work at the company who are responsible for like if you want a T-shirt with a character saying something crazy, there's somebody whose job that's like Mickey Mouse would never say that, and it's like it doesn't feel like that's happening with with DC, because that person should have been circling and highlighting all kinds of red in the script every time they said Martha. So I hope it. Well, even though I'm a Marvel guy,
Why did you say that name?
Yeah, it's like, excuse me, sir. Like, is that the climax? Our moms have the same name. Okay, cool. Like, we really respect the IP by doing that. So, I think it boils down to the respect. Put a person in position and allow the artists to create, and allow the people who understand the media and understand the medium to do what they need to do without because the stories are there, the characters are there. Like, you have all the household names, and yet somehow can't get it right. It's at some point you got to start looking in the mirror. So,
which crisis?
Yeah. Which crisis? I don't know. One
they
of
could
them.
do a riff on Crisis on Two Earths, the animated one. They could do that, but they could revamp it.
Go with I will accept Infinite Crisis because we kill off Flash in that one. And that opens up the initial multiverse. And when you start to look into the Crisis series, because technically there's like 10 different Crisis stories by themselves, universes collapse as a result of the Crisis stories. And that's how you can pull this character, make them part of this universe, and shrink down to get your established characters.
And to be completely honest with you, I'm not one of those people who's like married to, you got to do like a comic book story in the movie. I don't care about that. It's like we have established in the DC universe, we have crisis level events where universes collapse on each other, and some people from this world make it, and some people from this world make it, and a lot of people don't. I'm cool with just like telling a story that introduces
the Ultimate Universe.
Yeah, I'm in the middle on that.
I feel like because the Flash movie already exists and we know that they're using Flashpoint as the basis.
I'm not using any.
You're not. But by the time our movies get made, Flashpoint is already on screen, and we have to fix that.
It's not really going to theaters with Ezra and all this stuff, because they don't need to send it to theaters.
It's filmed.
Well, Black Adam.
We're just waiting on release at this point.
Black Adam is set to come out next, so
they're gonna bury that Flash movie in a vault. And on that note, this has been Ther-I-P. Make sure you hit a like if you haven't subscribed on that stuff. It's late. We're out of here. Peace.